Politics Hour. I am so excited to have my next guest here in studio via Skype. He's kind of in an undisclosed location in New York, but author Ben Mezrich, who is going to be in Rhode Island very soon to talk about his latest book, Woolly. Talk with us a little bit, hear the true story of the quest to revive one of history's most iconic extinct creatures. Now, if folks know Ben is widely known. He wrote Bringing Down the House, made into the movie 21. The Accidental Billionaires, made into the movie The Social Network. Do you already have movie rights for Woolly, Ben?
Yeah, so Woolly is going to be a big movie with Fox. We've got a writer-director working on it. The producer did Twilight and Maze Runner. And the movie should be shooting later this year. So, it's moving very quickly.
So, I kind of joked with folks, and you kind of wrote about precocious Cambridge students, the MIT kids going out to Vegas and inventing Facebook. How did you come up with the idea that you wanted to write about this topic?
Well, I've always been obsessed with woolly mammoths my whole life, and I've always wanted to be Michael Crichton. And so maybe a year ago, I started hearing about this woolly mammoth project, these geneticists who were trying to bring back the woolly mammoth. And so I essentially just reached out to Dr. George Church, who's the main character, and I said, I want to know what's going on. So he invited me to his lab, and I basically embedded myself in the lab over the past year and followed their progress. And it's just this incredible Jurassic Park story, but real, about these geneticists who are bringing back this extinct species.
And are we going, how far along in the process? This is a little Greek to me. It's inherently fascinating. Where are they in this endeavor?
What they're actually doing is they've got the frozen material that's coming up out of the tundra in Russia, basically, and they've sequenced the genome of a woolly mammoth. Then they've synthesized 23 genes that code for specific traits of woolly mammoths, like the red hair and the giant tusks and the ability to hibernate, and they're inserting them into the cells of an Asian elephant. So an Asian elephant will be giving birth to a woolly mammoth. They're pretty far along in terms of being able to do it. They've actually placed some of these genes into Asian elephant cells already. The next step is to have a baby elephant gestate, which actually takes 2 years.
Okay.
So the biggest sort of holdup is that an elephant takes so long to have a baby. But they are moving along, with the project, and I would say 2 to 3 years we'll have a baby woolly mammoth.
So, things are kind of happening in tandem and sort of parallel. You've written the book about what's happening. You've got a movie in the pipeline. But, you must be monitoring them. How do you not? It's your baby as well. How vested do you feel in the process having done the book?
Well, I'm very fortunate in that I sell the movie before I even write the book. So we've been working on the movie, simultaneous as I wrote the book. The screenwriter came out to Boston where I lived and basically hung out with all the scientists and was in the lab. And so I'm a big part of it from an early stage. So I get to, I don't have control over it in any way, but I get to work with them. They're wonderful people. And we're pushing this one, it's different than Jurassic Park and a lot of other movies in that the scientists are the good guys. Usually the scientists are the bad guys. But in this case, they're making the woolly mammoth for good reasons. And they're doing it all very responsibly. So I think this will be different than a lot of other sort of monsters go haywire kind of movies.
And where physically is this happening, Ben?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the lab is at Harvard. George Church has a big Harvard lab. It's one of the largest genetics labs in the world. It's kind of like Willy Wonka's factory, where in one place they're working on mosquitoes to get rid of malaria. They're working on transgenic mice so that you can't get Lyme disease from them. They're working on reverse aging so that the next generation will live 150 years. And they're working on woolly mammoths. So it's this crazy lab where all this is going on. Where we're going to put the woolly mammoths is actually the Siberian tundra. There's a project there called Pleistocene Park, which is run by 2 Russian scientists who are showing that you can actually keep the permafrost frozen longer if you can repopulate it with Pleistocene-era herbivores like woolly mammoths. So the reason to make the woolly mammoth is this giant geoengineering project to sort of save the world from what's going on in the climate. The tundra is this giant ticking time bomb full of carbon. When the permafrost melts, it's going to release more carbon than if we burned all the forests on Earth 3 times. So the goal of the woolly mammoth project is to actually keep that from happening. because mammoths actually keep the area cold. They have this sort of relationship with the environment, as all large animals do, by knocking down trees and patting down the snow. So they're actually good for the tundra, and that's really the goal.
That's just fascinating. So, with the goal of this, the environmental goal, we know how social media works, and the interest in this is going to be profound. I mean, are we going to have real-time cams like the birth of the baby giraffe? Are we going to be able to be looking at this from here in Providence? I mean, how?
Well, yeah, it's going to be like that times 10. I mean, when they actually manage to do this and they've got a mammoth, I assume it will all be televised. We'd love to have one at our movie premiere, but we'll see if we get one this time. I do think it will be something that the whole world will look at. And, the Mammoth Project is kind of like a moonshot project. All of this science and technology that goes into it is also going to give us all of these other things, like,
yes,
cures for diseases and reverse aging and things like that. It's all the same science. So as we push forward in making a mammoth, we're also pushing forward in solving a lot of our problems.
And how many folks are working on this? It sounds like a mammoth project.
Right. Well, George's team is a small team of postdocs. These are all young people from all over the world. There's four to six of them. But overall, there are labs all over the world that are involved. There's these Russian scientists. There's also a South Korean company trying to do it. And the sequencing of the mammoth took place in labs all over the world. So, it's an international project. And a lot of extinct species are being looked at in the same way, like passenger pigeons and dodo birds and all of these kind of animals that we either killed off or killed off for natural causes. We now might have the technology to bring them back.
And are there any of those folks out there saying, oh, they were extinct for a reason, they shouldn't be doing this and messing with science? I've seen Jurassic Park too many times. I'm sure you've heard from those folks. So, what do you tell them? Basically, what you just told me.
It's controversial. There are people who believe that we should be putting our efforts into other things like endangered species rather than bringing back an extinct species. Because what happens when you bring back one woolly mammoth is you've just created another endangered species. But the reality is that there's this karmic reason to do this as well. I mean, we killed the woolly mammoth. We killed the passenger pigeon. We eliminate species one after another, and now we have the ability to bring them back. So yes, in one sense, you are playing God, but you also played God when you ate them. So I think that there's sort of this way of looking at it that can be both good and bad. But I understand the ethical, fears. This technology is incredibly powerful, and there are people who could use it for the wrong reasons, and so it's important to be done responsibly.
And when they create the first one, and then can the others be created just simply biologically by procreating, or do you have to keep going back to the test tube?
Eventually, yes, but I think the initial project is a goal to create a herd in the lab. So you're actually essentially at some point going to need a factory of some sort. Eventually, of course, they could mate, but that, nature doesn't work as well as science in some ways. And if you're really trying to get a large number of these, you're probably going to have to make a bunch of them. But this is all still way in the future. The goal right now is to get one. And I think that's, 2 to 3 years off.
So, we talked about being able to watch real time by some sort of, camera. Will it be a tourist destination? Will there be the potential for people to go in person?
We're not trying, I don't think that any of these people are trying to make Jurassic Park. The goal isn't, caged mammoth. It's to create this pasture system that used to exist. 12,000 years ago, the Ice Age was ending, the world was warming, and these areas were teeming with life. You would see thousands of mammoths, and it would be just like the bison used to be in the West and things like that. And so I think the goal is to essentially get back to there, where these giant pasture systems are back to being living, sort of breathing things. And so, it's, obviously people are going to want to go and see a woolly mammoth, and I'm sure at some point they'll end up all over. But the goal is not, to create Jurassic Park.
So I want to talk a little bit. It sounds like this is a passion project. Is that how you approach writing in your books? Are they all passion projects? Writing about.
Not all passion projects. No. I will say that this one is truly something that I've been wanting to write my whole life. I worship Michael Crichton. Jurassic Park is one of my favorite books and movies. And I've always been looking for something like that. I grew up in a family of scientists, and I'm kind of the non-scientist in the family. But I've always been obsessed with science, and scientists are my idols. People like George Church are people I looked up to, and I look up to because they're the ones who are going to solve our world's problems. And so, yeah, for me, this is very much a passion thing. I mean, I think following Mark Zuckerberg around was not a passion. It was fascinating, and I loved writing it, and the social network was amazing, but I think it's a very different animal than this.
What, you didn't go hang out at the Fly Club and go to all the... That was not the passion?
It was more a job than it was a passion, yeah.
So, well, talk with us, a little bit, because, for folks who think that, books then get made into a movie, it was the movie and then the book. Is that how, Bringing Down the House and how does this either similar or not to the other projects?
This is an abnormal way to do it, because Bringing Down the House became 21. That actually took 5 years. That project, was the kind of thing where I essentially wrote an article for Wired magazine and Kevin Spacey read it, called me up out of the blue and said, I want to make a movie out of this. And then for 5 years we tried to make the movie, and we did. The Social Network was very different in that I essentially had a proposal that leaked onto the internet. That proposal, which was 14 pages long, caught the eyes of David Fincher and Aaron Sorkin, and that suddenly became a movie within 8 months. So those were two very different situations. But what happened since then is I became this kind of go-to guy for Hollywood producers to start pitching me projects, and I made great relationships in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So now I write my treatment, which is usually 15 to 20 pages, and I sell the movie with a producer to a studio, and then I write the book. So then it happens much faster. Now you still have no idea how long it's going to take for a movie actually to come together. Mm-hmm. You've got to get actors who want to do it. You've got to get a director usually, although we have a writer and a director for this one. You've got to get all the elements in place before it actually becomes a movie. But I've been fortunate in that I'm able to start earlier in the project. And so Wooly is on the verge of, shooting already, which is phenomenal.
So, talk with us a little bit about how does it feel to have your book going back to Bringing Down the House made into a movie? Is it sort of like your baby that you're like, oh, well, you can have this much creative leeway? Is it sort of like, I can't believe you're cutting that chapter out? I mean, was it a surprising process to go through, or, was it just a collaboration between the team that was put together?
I mean, for me, I've been very fortunate in that both movies I really enjoyed, and it was people I liked to work with. And it was amazing to watch. I remember watching, 21 for the first time in a studio, and I was sitting next to Lawrence Fishburne and Kevin Spacey watching this book that I had worked on, turn into a movie. And it's just a spectacular situation. And then The Social Network was just an awesome, awesome movie. And it ended up getting to go to the Oscars and being a part of that whole thing. And it's different every time. But I will say that I've been fortunate. Sooner or later, someone will make a bad movie out of one of my books. And that's just something that happens because you don't have a lot of control as an author. You hand it over to them basically, and they can do what they want. But I've been lucky, and I've worked with people that I really respect, and so that's been phenomenal. So I don't know. Everyone's experience is different in Hollywood, and mine so far has been very good.
And so you talk about that, having all these contacts now out there in the movie realm. I mean, how strange is it to get all of these proposals sort of in your lap? Like, maybe you might want to do this, maybe you might want to do that. Whereas, years past, you were kind of, in the lab yourself coming up with your own ideas of sort of what to do.
Well,
how different is it?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be all rejection. I used to send projects out and get rejected. That was your life as a writer. You're just rejection after rejection after rejection. And now it's a little different, but it's still a search for that incredible story. I mean, stories like the Woolly Mammoth. You have to be very lucky to stumble into something like that. So I just want to keep sort of finding these mega stories, and they come from all different angles. So it's great. I mean, it's great. I'll never leave Boston. The East Coast is my home, and I don't want to LA. But I enjoy being able to sort of get a hold of projects that I think are going to make great books.
And so let's talk, a little bit. You're going to be in Rhode Island next week.
I am. I'm going to be at the Anthony Quinn Estate. We're doing a wonderful charity event. I believe people who come will get to meet me, and George Church will be there, the main character, this kind of incredible scientist who's going to change all of our lives, and we'll tell you all the inside stories of the Woolly Mammoth. And I think you get a book. The book is out July 4th, and you will be getting a book. And I don't know. I don't have more details with me right now, but I'm sure you might have details.
Well, we're live right now, but we're going to clip this segment and we're going to push it out, promoting the book. And here's a question I have for you. So you're the book's out, you're working on the movie. Are you focused on the movie? Can you do other writing, or is it there's just not enough time in the day to be able to sort of juggle both? Are you myopically focused on the movie, or are you kind of got other oars in the fire?
I'm very extraneous in the movie, so I have plenty of time. I get to sort of go and hang out and watch, but my focus is the book. For the next month or two, I'll be on tour, pushing Wooly all over the country, doing whatever TV and radio I can, and then I'll pull up and find the next story and start writing whatever's next.
Can you give us a little teaser of what you might be thinking?
I wish I knew. I'm actually in a weird point right now where this Wooly is it. I usually have the next book teed up before I start, but this time this book really consumed me over the last year, and this is really all I've been doing. So I really don't have that next project. I do have 4 movies in pre-production, so there's a lot of movies happening right now with me, and a couple television shows. I do have a lot of projects going on, but in terms of what my next book is, I really don't know yet.
Well, I can pitch you, a digital media startup based in Providence, Rhode Island. I mean, the intrigue alone.
I'm sure there's lots of crazy stories you could tell. So
the intrigue alone. So, I was kind of checking out your bio, and I know Bringing Down the House, having been made into that movie. Are you a gambler? Do you like to gamble?
I am a gambler. I shifted to poker because they don't let me play blackjack anymore. So I'm a player. I have a group of friends that I play with on a weekly basis. We've been playing together for probably 12 years. So I play. I think poker is essentially the only game that I play right now. But I do have that gambling bug. So trying to avoid going to casino when I can. So
I'm not a gambler. You can count cards in blackjack. Can you count cards in poker?
You can't. Poker is a trickier game in that you're really playing the players.
Yeah.
And a really good poker player can sit down and tell the rest of the table what cards they're holding. And I'm not one of those players yet. I like to play socially. I think it's a lot of fun, but I'm definitely not the best player at the table ever, which for me is, I think, fun. I mean, blackjack is just a game of math. It's pure math. Blackjack, if you know the math, you have a percentage above the house if you're counting. You're going to win a certain amount over time. And if you're not counting, you're going to lose a certain amount over time. And the gambling of it is if you ignore the math and just play by your emotions. And that can be more fun, but it's not, playing correctly. So blackjack isn't really that much fun if you know what you're doing, as opposed to poker, which is always a big game. And listen, the better poker players will usually win more than the bad poker players, but at any given table, anybody can win. And that's kind of the fun of it.
So, talk to us a little bit. How do casinos say that, blackjack players are cheating if you're just smarter than the average bear?
They don't say you're cheating. They say you're not paying your fair share. When you walk into a casino, you have an expected loss. They don't tell you that. But everyone who walks into Spotswoods or Mohegan, they expect to win $300 from you. And if you don't have that expected loss, then you are not paying the fee to go to the casino. So it's within their right to kick you out. You haven't cheated, you haven't done anything illegal by counting cards. They can't arrest you, or anything like that. But they don't have to deal to you. You can be sent away. And essentially they tell you, listen, you're too good for us, or you're not allowed to play here, or something like that, and they ask you to go play something else. And so usually it's very nice. In the days of the MIT Blackjack team, it could get a lot worse.
They really do take you into the basement and bring out the brass knuckles.
No, there were stories like that. Not me. I was chased out of the casino a couple times, but I was never taken to a basement. But a couple of the kids on the MIT Blackjack team were handcuffed and roughed up way back. That was back in the 90s. Nowadays, they would just throw you out.
So that legal argument holds, I'm assuming,
Well, it's not a legal argument. This is a private establishment, and they don't have to let you play.
It's their rules. Okay. That's,
rules.
Yeah.
They can't, detain you or anything like that. And whatever you've won is your winnings, as long as you weren't actually cheating. There's a line between card counting and cheating.
Okay.
Cheating is manipulating the cards, is using a device, something like that. Card counting is just using math. They don't have to let you play, but they can't arrest you or anything.
And let's tack over to Facebook for a little bit, having been in the weeds with it. The numbers approaching 2 billion worldwide. I'm sure you've probably anticipated this, having again been there. But I mean, is the sky the limit for Facebook? Or are we going to see like some antitrust laws sort of coming in talking about media? I mean, what's your prediction as we're here in 2017?
My prediction is we're going to be looking at Mark Zuckerberg as our president within the next 8 years. I don't think there's any stopping Facebook. It's massive. It's going to keep growing and growing and growing. And it's going to become a part of, if it isn't already, a part of everyone's daily lives. Because it's not just Facebook. They also own Instagram, you know.
Yes.
They are getting into video. They're getting into VR, even though nobody really knows what to do with that yet. Facebook is all-encompassing, and I don't think that there's any reason why it should stop. What's interesting is that I think Mark Zuckerberg's ambitions are much bigger. And I do think he wants to be president, and I do think he believes he wants all of us to be on Facebook all day long as our lives. So you know,
I sort of already am.
We all are, and I think that it's incredible what he's done, and I do think that is our future. We're all going to be, it's part of our lives, and I don't think it's going anywhere.
Well, I was so excited to be able to have you Skype in, tell us about Woolly, kind of pick your brain in your old projects. Coming to Rhode Island, we'll be putting more information up for viewers when we clip this and have it after the fact. But anything else you want to share with folks about Woolly, or, tell them a little bit more? I'm so enticed to read the book. I'm going to go next Saturday and take it and go Sunday to breakfast and just, keep reading.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I think that this is an important story, and it's a fun story. My goal really is to get this into hands, first of all, of everybody who's interested in science, but also, I'm working with a bunch of different school systems to get it into high schools, to get it into the hands of sort of younger people as well, because I think that the woolly mammoth is a way of getting people into the science that's going to change all of our lives. I mean, really and truly, the next generation might live 150 years because of what's going on in the Woolly Mammoth Project.
Well,
and so I think people really need to take a look at it. But I do hope people come out to the event. I think it's going to be a great event. It's for a good cause. And I look forward to it. I love Providence. And, my mother was actually born in Providence. So I've spent a lot of time in the area, and I think it's just going to be a lot of fun.
Well, we'd like to consider you, one of us from here, Providence, but we always love feel-good stories, and this is great. And Ben, we so appreciate your taking the time to Skype in today, and we very much look forward to seeing you next week.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Okay, Ben Mezrich.